Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Faith and I'm a homeschooling mom to 4 kids. And today I want to chat with you guys about one of those common homeschool myths, this little thing we like to call socialization. So if you have been a homeschool mom or have been homeschooling for any amount of time, you have likely been asked, well, what about socialization? Aren't your kids going to be isolated? They're not going to have any friends. Aren't they going to turn out to be, some little weirdos? If I had a nickel for every time someone had brought something like that to my attention or had used that as an argument to not homeschool, guys, I'd have a lot of nickels and I could use them to buy a lot of books, because if you watched any of my previous videos, you know that I love books. But obviously we've homeschooled this is our 7th year. And so obviously I think this reason to not homeschool, or to use it as a reason to not homeschool, is just silly. It's kind of ridiculous. And so today I'm going to just sit and chat with you and we can debunk this myth that homeschool kids are unsocialized and are just, going to be unable to converse with anyone who is outside of their family. So if you've ever had someone who has tried to use this as a reason as to not homeschool, or try to persuade you not to homeschool, I'm just going to give you a few common rebuttals that I have either had to use or I've heard friends use in a way to either, defend your choice to, because obviously, right, it's your choice to get to homeschool your kids, but to either keep them off your backs or to just give someone else the reason why this myth is a myth. So when someone comes to you with this argument about what about socialization, one of the first things you can give them is, that's kind of the point. I don't want to send my kid to be with 20 to 30 other kids for 7 to 8 hours a day, kids who have different beliefs, who could expose my kids to language or topics that I'm not ready to have my kids exposed to. All of those things, that's kind of the point. That's one of the major reasons that I have chosen to keep them home with me, where I am in charge of what they're exposed to, the topics we discuss. Look at what's being taught in the public school system right now. All of the things that are going on politically or in the school system, where they're not just teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic anymore, guys. So that can be kind of part of the reason why you've chosen to homeschool. I don't want them socialized by other kids or by other teachers who don't hold to the same belief system as I do. I personally don't want my kids going and being indoctrinated by teachers who have different belief systems than we do. I don't want my kids going to school and being peer pressured into believing certain things or thinking certain things are okay. I don't want them coming home with language or different words or beliefs, or hearing different stories or seeing different things on electronics that have made it into the school system. All of those things, I don't want my kids being socialized by that environment. Okay, and this brings me to my next point of, when someone comes and says, well, what about socialization? You don't want your kids to grow up and be weird and unsocialized. So this kind of depends on how you define weird. Are you defining weird as just being different? Are you defining weird as being kids who are not led by the culture and the fads and whatever is trending? Do you want them to follow along with everyone else, or do you want them to think for themselves and march to the beat of their own drum? Because honestly, here's the thing. As believers, people who believe in Jesus Christ, we should be different. We should look different and we should act different. We should be in this world, but not of this world. So while that may have taken me a while to get used to, when someone says my kid looks different or my kid is weird or my kid doesn't fit in, I kind of take pride in that, because I don't want to look like the rest of the world. And then, along with this same thing, aren't we all a little weird? We all have weird tendencies. We all do. We have our own little quirks and do things differently than other people. And, growing up, I knew, and to this day, I know weird homeschoolers. Yep, there are some. I am a homeschooler, but I know weird homeschoolers, and I know weird public schoolers, and I know weird private schoolers. And so the conclusion that I came to is that if your parents are weird, you're going to have weird kids. right? We're all just weird. We're all different. And so you can be weird in any one of those institutions: homeschool, private school, public school. You can be weird in any one of those. And so we just kind of realized, like, if your parents are weird, you might be a little weird too. And if you don't see anyone weird around you, well, it just might be you. Just totally kidding. But like, we're all weird in our own way. So that's okay. We should look different, right? We should look different. All right, so another response, another rebuttal that you could give someone if someone comes to you and says, okay, well, what about socialization? Well, when we were kind of discussing this topic, because I'm not going to lie, as a parent, you don't want your kid to be labeled as weird. So these were things that we struggled with. But in the end, when it came down to it, we knew that as the parents of our children, at the end time, we were going to have to give an account for the time that we used in discipling our kids. Nobody else was. And we started to realize that it would be so much easier to have a good influence on our kids if we were the ones who were with them each and every day, pouring into them, pointing them to Jesus, and not letting someone else be in charge of that role. Again, with everything that's going on with the school system, we definitely are so glad that we're the ones that are choosing what they're learning, and we're the ones that are pouring into them day in and day out. Okay, another rebuttal that you can have if someone's bringing up this socialization topic is that you truly need to sit down and define, what do you mean by socialization? Are we talking about being in the same vicinity as someone, like in a school system where you're sitting at a desk in a classroom and you're surrounded by your peers? Or are we actually talking about face-to-face conversation? Are we talking about playing where you're actively able to talk? Because in my experience, both my husband and I were public schooled all the way through, but our experience with this socialization is that you were in the classroom, but you truly weren't allowed to talk to your neighbor. Your teachers were saying, stop talking, stop chatting, you need to pay attention, stop talking, no talking, no talking, no talking. Those were the things that you were even told, you're not here to socialize, you're here to learn. And so what are we talking about here? We're talking about being in the same room as another one? Or are we talking about actually this undivided time where you can truly talk and play with your friends? We grew up and you were going to school to learn. Like, that was the reason you went to school. And so your socialization was actually these stolen moments where you were whispering to your neighbor and getting in as much talk time and catching up in between classes and periods and at lunchtime and at recess, and getting in those stolen moments before the teacher caught you and told you to stop talking and to listen. And honestly, anymore, these poor kids, bless their souls, they can't even get within 3 to 6 feet of another child, or, they're not able to intermix the classes anymore. And you only eat lunch with your class, and you only have recess with your class, and you can't really be within so close of them. So again, what socialization are we talking about here? The reality and one of the benefits of homeschool is that we make it a priority to see our friends and to have this time where we are getting socialization. I don't keep my kids locked up in our house in a tiny bubble, never seeing anyone at any point during the week. That's not how it is. We have co-ops and we have friends where we just routinely get together. We have activities. We have just play dates in general where we're getting together and we're doing nothing but playing at the park. We have all of these opportunities to get together and be around other kids where they're actually able to have undivided time, where they're playing without instruction from parents, where they're talking without being told to be quiet. They have a ton of time, at least in our family, to get together with their friends and have these activities and these experiences with them where they're genuinely building strong foundation relationships. And honestly, when I thought of it that way, if I were to take all of the time that my kids get with their friends, where it's undivided time, where they're truly able to play and to just do what they want with their friends, if I added up that time, I almost guarantee that it would be more than what the kids are getting in a public school system. Now, mine may not look like, okay, well, they get this much time on Monday and this much time on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like in a public school system, they're going to see these same kids Monday through Friday. My kids may not see all of the other kids every single day, but we might have a random day in the week where we spend 8 hours with a group of friends. And that is 8 hours of uninterrupted time where they got to spend with their friends on a play date, at a park day, at the zoo, at a science museum, whatever it is, where they were with their friends having fun and not being told to be quiet or to listen. It was just time spent socializing with their friends. All right, the last little rebuttal that I'm going to give you about okay, well, what about socialization is that this idea that schools are creating this false sense of what the real world is like. How many organizations or jobs or anything that you've ever been in, have you ever really truly worked with, just the people that you worked with, that are the exact same age and background as you, where everyone else around you is from this small little area in your town and you're all the same age? Nothing is like that, right? That is a false sense of what the real world is like. When you actually get into the real world, you need to be able to interact and communicate with people who are older than you, people who are on the same age and level as you, and people who are less experienced and younger than you. All walks of life. You need to be able to communicate and socialize with people who are different and all across the board. That's not what school does for you. You're put in a room with 20 to 30 other kids who are the exact same age as you and told that that's what socialization is. And so as homeschoolers, we try to emulate what the real world is like. We have older kids who are helping teach and working with younger kids. They're working with the preschoolers. And if you've ever been to a co-op that has, goes all the way from the high schoolers all the way down to the younger kids, you can totally see it. They don't just brush them off as oh, go leave me alone. Okay, I won't say that this is perfect all the time, but it's amazing to see the older kids really take the younger kids under their wing, because homeschoolers really try to teach their kids that they need to work with the younger kids. They need to be able to work with older kids. They need to be able to have conversations with adults. So whether you're talking about co-op leaders and teachers and people at church, or the person checking you out at the grocery store, all over, they're using that as learning opportunities to teach their kids that you need to be able to communicate with people of all walks of life. So the next time someone brings up, this idea of socialization as a reason as to why you shouldn't homeschool, those are just a few quick and easy rebuttals to remember that you can, have stored in the back of your mind that you can use to defend your stance on why you choose homeschool. So if you have a favorite, drop it below. If you have something that I didn't even think of, drop that below too. I love to hear other people's explanations of how they combat, these reasons why you should homeschool. So until next time, guys, have a blessed day.